Oh boy, it's Mr. Nailsin Sunday Comics. Oh wait, this isn't a public domain comic. No. See what happened from my Wednesday show? I did uh, two titles and a couple of issues therein with Shazam and the Symbiote Spider-Man 2099, and somehow forgot all about the Ultimates #1. Well, there's probably a good reason for that. So I thought, hey, I'll take this time to catch up with it. Plus, not feeling so great and don't have time to do a full comic or story or what have you. So, anyway, out of the endeavor of the new Ultimates universe or Ultimate universe, the Ultimates you would think would be a pretty important title as it carries on the overall narrative established by Ultimate Invasion and what have you, and what the maker wrought. And of course, Spider-Man became the big title, but as we go, it's all very lackluster and rather boring. And with Black Panther being the only one where something at least seems to be taking place. So here with Ultimates, it's kind of on par with that. So, well, it's not Brian Hitch art, but it's not bad. And this is pretty good cityscape here of showing the aftermath of the Stark destruction and whatnot. And then, well, you have young Tony Stark now following in the footsteps of Howard in this, well, new world. And so there they are. They've found Captain America in ice. And you have this alternate version of Doom, who is actually an alternate version of Reed Richards, I believe, at least it's supposed to be. Thor was badly wounded, so Sif's helping out, and so on and so forth. And they're going, what do we do? How do we address this? And the Maker is going to get freed from his prison, and we've got to put the world, or put right what once went wrong. And meanwhile, Stark and his ilk are considered terrorists and whatnot. So there's, they got problems to deal with. And so they're seeking out other members that they want. They go through their plans about what to do, and Stark and Doom argue about what to do. And eventually they bring on Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man, of course, they had reached out to different people, and of course Spider-Man was one who Tony sends out these spheres that will release their powers and what have you, and so that they can become the people they were supposed to become. And well, a similar thing happened with Hank Pym, but he kept having dreams about the life he was supposed to have had, and of course, it was a very dark life. He fell very low. He lashed out at Janet rather brutally, far more than the original story, where of course it became a rather shocking scene where Hank Pym hit Janet, and gave her a black eye and all this stuff. But in this universe, I mean, they got in a fight, and she was using her wasp powers, and then he sprayed her with Raid bug poison. So then she went and hid under a desk or something, and then he ordered the ants to attack her. So it was really bad. He got kicked out of the Ultimates and all that, and then he became this joke and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, he somehow, and how does this happen? Through if the timeline didn't unfold the way it normally did because of the Maker's manipulation, then none of this ever happened. And yet somehow he's dreaming of it. And of course, I guess you could go into, well, it's an alternate timeline, the real timeline's still there and all that, and yet thanks to Secret Wars, all this had been destroyed. So I don't but nevertheless, anyway, he was afraid to do that because he had these visions of himself, and he doesn't want to be that guy. So it's an interesting take on him and being reluctant for this. Meanwhile, Janet takes to it immediately. They get into this battle, and at least there is a confrontation and battle and stuff. But it's like, oh, it's like a fish to water. You're zipping around and your superpowers and all that. That's not believable. Ultimately, Hank Pym becomes the main hero who saves the day in that story anyway. But it's an interesting thing. How are they going to follow this narrative? Does he still have his problems, his insecurities? He clearly does, because he's afraid of that man. But then again, it kind of gives him a vision of what not to do. So maybe that's the take they'll go with on that. But anyway, this is in following the overall narrative, Ultimates, you would think, and I'm guessing it pretty much is, the more important book to follow for the story overall. But hopefully there's some actual interesting stories to it. Right now, I'm thinking Ultimates is ultimately a failure. It's just too damn boring. There's interesting aspects to it. There is, even in Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is just such a slow slog. And X-Men is interesting. I find it intriguing, and it's surreal and kind of cool, but it's not the X-Men at all. So that's a problem. Black Panther, it's kind of boring in its own right, but at least there's a story, there's something going. Black Panther is doing something and all that. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of like, why even bother with an ultimate Black Panther where he's pretty much Black Panther? It's just he's got kind of a open mouth mask now, like Batman, I guess. But that's so. I don't know. So a lot of this, it's strange, and it kind of looks like some of this was a bit slapped together. So I don't know. It's not fair to judge Ultimates just on a first issue, which wasn't really all that bad. But boy, it's a far cry from the original with Mark Millar and Brian Hitch. But that's a tough thing to follow anyway. But I'll stick around. But I don't know. Things need to pick up, and it might come to it that all I like is Ultimates. I don't know. I end up just reading it and, well, forget about the others, that kind of thing. But right now, they need to really pick it up, because I'm not seeing a reason to stick with the Ultimates. And just because the mainstream Marvel comics is so bad, that's not reason enough.